Today's episode of Splain Yourself is brought to you by Sperry. As you well know, Sperry's are seafaring clothing and accessories for your adventurous lifestyle. They're also a nice complement to any pastel romp hymn. Buy some at Sperry.com.
What is a romp hymn?
A romp hymn is like a romper for dudes.
That's pretty great. Y'all, welcome to Splain Yourself, the podcast that gives regular people a chance to explain their actions or beliefs. I'm Sarah Diddy Brett Davis, counting down the days to summer when I transform into Malibu Sarah.
And I'm Michael, and you can't touch this. We have with us today our favorite guest. He is the mayor of marketing and a licensed counselor. Josh is with us today, and he'll be moving into the co-pilot chair where I take the slink into the hot seat.
Thanks, Josh, for being here, man.
Yes, thank you so much. And today sounds like a really exciting episode. I'm ready to roll. Let's do this.
Let's do this. How many is this for you, Josh? How many episodes have you been on now?
This is
number?
Number 4. I was going to say in Espanol. I'm just going to say number 4.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right.
Well, we're glad to have you back.
Thank you.
Today, we are going to take on the topic of depression, which is a big one, and we'll probably split this into 2 or 3 parts, but depression is something all 3 of us, I think, are interested in for one reason or another. I've been thinking about it since college. My major was psychology, and I've got friends and family who deal with chronic depression. Josh and Michael, why does this topic carry a lot of weight with you guys?
Well, you go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, because I deal with it. I fight the good fight against depression literally every day.
Okay.
This was posed to me and said, hey, you want to come and talk about this a little bit with us? And I said, hey, it's a leading cause of disability. It'd be really interesting to talk about. And if we can share personal stories, that'd be fascinating as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Well, why don't we talk to Michael, since you've got personal experience with this firsthand?
Sure.
What's this like having to do this on a day-to-day basis?
It is all-encompassing.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything, not everything, but 70% of the things I do are meant to fight against this because, while it is not constant, you never know when it comes back. So a lot of things in my life are tailored to fight against it. Jiu-jitsu, I started taking the pills, which are called New Mood by Onnit, which I endorsed earlier. My diet, my sleep schedule, the influences that I hear. I've recently deleted some podcasts that I've been listening to for, I don't know, some of them like a decade because I felt they were too negative. My relationship with Lauren, when I'm going to psychologist, my finances, and just my general feelings about myself. So it really, when it's going strong, it really encompasses everything. When the day-to-day, I have to fight tooth and nail against it because I don't want to go into these bad areas. So that's sort of what it is for me. I have to make a lot of judgments based on, is this going to make me feel horrible, that most people, I think, don't. Sure.
And could you describe maybe briefly just what it is like when you do hit that place where it's like, okay, now I'm in it. Now this is my depression rearing its ugly head. What is that like?
The easiest way I can describe it is it feels like everything I do is either too much effort, and I'm talking about like regular day-to-day stuff.
Right.
Like that cleaning the litter box, boy, that is Herculean.
Right.
I don't know how anybody does this every day. Meanwhile, I do it every day. It's clean up the litter box. Like, there's nothing going on here.
Right.
And that often I feel like I have wasted my life. So I feel very worthless. Like, everything I do is worthless. And maybe it's not worthless, but I stink at it so badly, or I don't see a point in it, that you just feel like just everything is worthless and useless.
Absolutely.
Josh, you got any thoughts?
Well, yeah, and I appreciate your honesty, and I'm also applaud you for all of the effort you've taken to rewrite the script and change the tape that seems to be playing ongoing. And so the external factors, the way you spend your time, the way you think about things, to try to offset the nature of what it is that leads you down the path of displeasure and complications where you're feeling like you're stuck and can't get out of a situation. And talking about it and getting help for it, and that's where things really seem to make the difference.
Awesome. So, as I mentioned earlier, my interest has been ongoing since I chose my major, and obviously that topic came up. The topic of depression came up a lot in my studies.
Sure.
And it just seemed very interesting to me as a person who had never really experienced it. In fact, in college, I was probably in a place where I hadn't even really ever been super sad.
Right.
You know, like nothing devastating had ever happened. So I didn't even have anything to grab onto as far as what depression was actually like. So I really wanted to understand it, really wanted to wrap my head around it. And even then, and this was, let's see, late 90s, early 2000s. Even then, it seemed to me really questionable the way that we treat depression, right? So nationally, globally, at that time and even now, part of the answer is, well, maybe you should take these drugs, these antidepressant drugs, right? But certainly since then, there's just been a growing body of evidence to suggest that they're not as effective as we once thought they were, right? And just to kind of throw in a personal anecdote of my own, my husband and I have a friend who committed suicide in 2014. He had been dealing with depression and had just been put on an antidepressant drug, and he had only been on it for maybe a week or two when he took his own life. And it would take a lot of convincing to prove to me that didn't have anything to do with his being placed on the antidepressant. So I have this very negative opinion of that as a treatment method for antidepressants, but I don't know enough about how those have changed over the years since I was a psych major, and probably it's the case that a lot of therapists, that's not their first suggestion, right? It's not like, ooh, let's pull out that script pad and, get you on a drug. So what do you think, either one of you, about treatment of depression?
Yeah, I'm definitely sorry to hear that, and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I think that I don't push medication. I think there's a time and a place where if that's what the person needs because things have gotten out of hand and out of control.
Right.
But it is a very controlled environment. I mean, it is. Yeah, it has to be prescribed by a doctor and it needs to be monitored by a doctor. But they shouldn't be left to fend for themselves when they go home. They should be controlled in the home, so it's not sold or used, outside of doctor's orders. And then, there's the side effects, these commercials, usually the commercials with the side effects. And I'm like,
they're crazy.
May cause road rage and chronic diarrhea. We had diarrhea.
Right. Very physical side effects. Yeah.
All these different pieces.
Right, exactly.
So I get cautioned, and in all honesty, when we're talking about antidepressants, some of them can cause and lead to additional cases of suicidality, and that's very concerning to me.
Yeah.
And so knowing that on the front end, I wouldn't say no, you don't take it because it can do this. I would say, what does the process of monitoring this look like? And what does it look like coming off of it?
There you go.
Those are some of the questions I want to know before we would even look at going on to medication.
Right.
Is therapy going to be alongside the treatment, or is it one or the other? So with adolescents, the National Institute of Mental Health, it's recorded that 60% of adolescents don't receive any kind of treatment for depression, which is, very concerning. And then there's the stats of, with a health professional only or with medication only. And I would say medication without therapy or treatment with a healthcare professional is not what I would prescribe.
Recipe for disaster, absolutely.
Yeah,
right.
Left to their own vices, exactly. You're already in this darkened place. Now I'm going to possibly change the chemistry, alter it further.
Right.
And so I don't know. I think there's people that, this is like somebody who's anxious. Okay, let's talk about this. Well, somebody who has chronic panic attacks. Well, now that sounds like panic, a panic disorder. And I think that's where medication, I would filter in medication in that end.
Sure.
But it's not a catch-all. And, they've come a long way, but it's complicated. They're not going to, genetically they can sort of say, hey, what's the best form of treatment now? And they can come to a better case of what medication will work with your body. But it's still a process, and it's going to continually be a process. And I think ultimately I don't know if it's sort of presented this way, or we think that I get on these meds, I feel better. It's just an immediate thing, and it's just not true.
Right.
there still needs to be lifestyle changes. So that's why you tell me, like, I listen to podcasts, for a decade, and now I don't. I'm like, man, way to go. Like, that's incredible, because you didn't take a magic pill and all of a sudden things got better. And so when we do talk about antidepressants, I say, well, that's okay. We can bring that into the conversation. And in addition to that, what kind of lifestyle changes are we looking at? What kind of thought pattern, self-talk is going to change?
Right. Absolutely. Speaking of self-talk, side note, we'll come back to this, but there's some interesting new developments.
Josh has about 87 pages of notes here highlighted.
Josh will make sure that we don't forget to come back to this. But I did want to ask Michael, if you don't mind, sharing any thoughts or personal experiences you have with the treatment of your depression.
Okay, so I first realized it started like that. I was depressed in 2008. 2008. That was my first trip to a psychologist, but that was when it really struck me that this was going on, and I've been going on and off ever since. So sometimes it'll be a year or two in between. I just sort of end up going when it becomes intolerable. Basically. The last time I went, I was like, hey, man, how about those medications? Double gunpoint.
Man.
He was like, I don't know. Whoa. I just went in and asked right off the bat. Like, I feel terrible.
Yeah.
This has been going on for months, and this is and it has also been, in the larger picture, been going on for years. And he said, like, well, I think we should do some therapy first. I was like, all right, that's reasonable, but where are them drugs at?
Yeah.
I didn't end up getting any. To me, I like to take what is a generalist approach, which is I feel like the best metaphor I can say is that I am in an ocean and I am constantly treading water, and I will grab onto anything that will help me float.
There you go.
Now, will it help me? Maybe. But my choice is to keep treading where I'm going to run out of breath eventually.
There you go.
Or, hey, that looks like some driftwood. Maybe it's a snake.
Yeah.
But that's what I got,
it's
right?
What you got.
So I would certainly, and I'm not opposed to medicine at all. I completely agree with Josh that it needs to be monitored and done in conjunction with treatment. But I often feel like with my lifestyle changes, I don't have that much more to change.
Yeah.
Right? It is unrealistic. If I just let myself do only the things that I enjoyed and minimize the chance of depression that way, then literally nothing would ever get done around the house. Because I enjoy none of those things. So, like, hot water heater's broken? That's just staying there. Cat poop in the litter box? Change it yourselves, little mugs. Michael hates that stuff. So that's not practical either, right? And then there are things that that trigger depression that I can't control. So, like, when Sarah eventually fires me from the podcast because I'm unfunny and unprepared, then I'm going to be sad. And then what else can I do? Like, I think I'm in here killing it, except for obviously I'm not. And then I will be sad and upset about that.
Sure.
Like, what else do I grab onto? Like, my diet is strict.
Yeah.
I keep a regimented sleep schedule. I drink a lot of water. I take these supplements. I exercise. I try and do the things I enjoy. Even when it's warm out, I'll go and lay out in the sun. Not to get a suntan, but to, just to embrace the sun rays. I have a fake sun lamp. So I do pretty much all of them.
So, I totally hear what you're saying. And that I think it's crucial to identify the fact that there are things outside of your control. And to me, it kind of raises this bigger question of, is depression related more to what we are doing or more what our mindset is, right? So you said there's always things that you can do, right? And you can't do anything more. And to me, the things that you're saying that you would want to grab onto are actions, whereas I'm wondering if, and this is a question, I have no idea what the answer is. I'm wondering if it's more something that's related to just what your general worldview is, like where your mind is at all times. So that gets back to what you were saying about your thinking patterns, right? What do you think about that?
When somebody says I'm depressed or I feel downcast, I have this displeasure, etc., it's important to remember there's a lot of different factors that go into depression, and it's complicated. There could be genetic factors. There could be stressful life events. Medication can bring about some of these pieces, and other medical problems. And so when I was in college, my mom passed away, and that was the first time I noticeably realized I was depressed. And so she died in April, and that I went through the summer. Actually, I shouldn't even say that. As soon as it happened, I was in my dorm room, and I remember sleeping for 18 hours. And when I'd wake up, I would just turn over again.
Yeah.
And I was up on a top bunk, and my peers at that time, they hadn't experienced that, so they didn't know what to say or what to do.
Yeah.
And the environment that I was in, and it's not blaming the environment. The environment I was in was not prepared to help me through that difficult time.
Right.
We didn't have a mental health professional on site. I didn't know where to find or locate those resources, and so I had a girlfriend at the time who said, "Hey, there's at a random church, there's going to be a grief share, which is a support group for grief and loss," and we went, and then I went back after that, and that was really the saving grace. Was a group of people who identified with my experience, and we went through that journey together. And then when I graduated, one of the guys came, and many people were a lot older than me. I'd experienced that there were people who lost their husbands, wives, daughters, sons, kids, fiancés, you name it. And you filter through this death, and you end up working through the grief and loss, which is something that is necessary and shouldn't be avoided. And I see depression as the same thing. It's something we shouldn't nonchalantly just say, "Hey, I feel down. Now I'm just going to watch Netflix for 35 hours."
Right.
Or and justify these means, because that's what we do. I'm really annoyed at my job. Time to make an alcohol reference. And while sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's concerning. The amount of humor we use to expose, basically, not to extinguish our fear, and not to work through the problem, and not to identify how low or lonely we feel, but rather to medicate, or self-medicate, I should say, which is not going to help the situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if it was just a matter of mindset, that would be really, that's almost like a too simplistic approach.
I agree.
What happens is, the best way I could describe it is like, the fog of depression comes over your mind, and everything is then filtered through that.
Right.
So it was just a matter of like, A, I can't control it, and B, I can't kick it out either.
Yeah.
So I am mentally tough. Like, I have a ton of discipline.
Sure.
I can do anything when I feel right, but I can't get this out.
Gotcha.
So if it was just a matter of like, all right, let's do some positivity today.
Right.
Or like, we can get into self-talk, but like, self-talk is like, all right, today's going to be a good day. I'm going to do this and this.
Right.
I know this is coming up. It's where I'm going to say real positive stuff. And I just think like, all of that sounds horrible. And you have a weak will because you feel this way. And, you think you're really tough and disciplined, but actually you are weak and you have a poor constitution, and you're not really a man. Like, you can't muster up, and like, you look around and like, people go through much worse circumstances than I live in, and you say like, oh, look at that person who can get through this difficult event. Like, this dude has a Purple Heart from the war,
right?
And you can't even get up to teach high school. Like, what kind of piece of crap are you?
Right.
I'm like, well, yeah, I am a piece of crap. Like, look at that jellyfish.
It's like never-ending cycle.
Sure, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And then it's just really difficult to just like boost off, get the remnants of that out, and then bring in the more positivity.
Sure. Yeah. I can see how when you're there in that place, there's no like talking yourself out of it. That makes 100% sense.
And I disagree a little bit with Josh. Is like, yeah, you probably should not be watching Netflix for 35 hours in a row. But if 35 hours of Netflix is going to get you to a place where you think you can like get up, like give you like some sort of temporary reprieve, then I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Like, if this is your driftwood in the ocean, and you want to watch Fuller House for 35 hours. Like sometimes that's all I got, right?
Well, you didn't say Fuller House. That's
It
way
is-
That's a different story.
It is hilarious.
I will say this: the times that I can't label myself as dealing with chronic depression at all, but there, like Josh said, when an event happens and you feel the weight of it, that's probably very similar to the symptoms of depression, I would assume. So I'm thinking of the times when I've been totally lethargic, totally uninterested in everything, right? And that's definitely happened, for sure. And we've gone through some hard things, and we feel like, I'll never do anything again. I'm just going to live right here in this bedroom for the rest of my life, right? So in those times, I've noticed that if I do go to Netflix, and this is purely anecdotal, if I do go to Netflix, if I do stay in that room, it doesn't really seem to get any better. And this may be different for other people. But the thing that actually helps more than anything is the thing that I don't want to do, which is to get up and get out of the house and go interact with people.
Sure.
That's right.
And that helps every single time for me. But like I said, I don't know if that's true for everybody. I'm an extrovert, so that it may be that that to me is good medicine, is being around other people. But I would venture to say that I think connection is good for everybody, even if you're not extroverted. I don't know.
Sure. And I attribute what happened to me in 2008 was when I moved. I was living in Pennsylvania at the time, and I moved to Texas. And I went from a close group of friends, right, who I saw regularly, and we had been, by 2008, we had been intertwined in each other's lives. Let's call it 8 years, right? And so I saw these people all the time, and we did everything together. And then one day,
boom,
they're all gone.
Disconnected.
Right. And I have never found that replacement, right? So I continue to deal with this. Like, I don't really, outside of this room, I don't really have too many friends here in Greenville either, right? And so it's always this longing for connection.
Wow.
And this, you seem like, it would be like, oh, the next answer, we'll go make some friends.
Yeah. No.
I don't know how.
Yeah. That's easier said than done, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, especially with guys, there's always kind of like a awkward dynamic, right?
Yeah.
And like, I have a good story with Josh, which I'm sure he won't mind me sharing. Like, he texted me one day and he's like, hey, we're going to watch Heidi's band, who is one of the other teachers here. And he said, like, his wife and the kids are coming.
Yeah.
And Lauren was like, well, I can't go after work. And I wrote back to Josh, like, hey, man, is it cool if I come? It's just me. And he was like, yeah,
Josh
man.
is like, no, that's not okay. Sorry.
He was like, yeah, sure.
I'm in 33 hours in the Fuller. No,
And I was like, are you sure? Like, I don't think you guys are having happy family time. I don't think you just want me there, like, hanging out.
Right.
And Josh was like, yeah,
Josh
of
was like,
course
it's fine.
Of course you come. And I was like, oh, man, this is going to be so awkward. Like, Josh and his wife are just trying to, like, hang out with the kids. And then old fifth wheel is going to be there. And what Josh didn't tell me, he just was like, yeah, of course, come, yeah. But there was a whole production and discussion at my house behind the scenes, and I was like, Lauren, I really can't go without you because I don't know what to do. Like,
right.
She was like, shut up, just go. What are you talking about? Like, Josh, your friend, go. And then when we got there, of course, it was great. And that, unbeknownst to me, Josh had invited a bunch of other people that I knew, so it wasn't just me and Josh and his family.
Right.
But I didn't know that going in, and I didn't want to text Josh that, because then I'm pushing, like, my uncomfortable weirdness onto him.
Right.
When I only feel it's proper to push it onto Lauren.
Right.
So this is the kind of thing that goes on with me all the time.
Sure.
Right? Is like, I don't know exactly how to do this. I don't want to be a pain or like a burden. And oftentimes I'll say it doesn't matter.
Sure.
So I have all these things going at once, and none of them work together at all.
Sure.
Right? The only people that I know that I am friends with, or that I can, like, feel really comfortable with, are the people that I'm already friends with.
Right.
Which is, like, a really painful way to do things, right? Like,
oh, absolutely it is. And making friends is hard. I mean, as an adult, making friends is really, really, really hard. But I will say that you've got some coworkers that are very nonchalant and open and friendly. And you know what happens at the Davis house. We don't care about nothing.
No, nothing.
You can come over anytime.
Right, and this was interesting to me. We were discussing things at the Davis house the other day, and you just go over there and do literally whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
Right, and Sarah thought I was making fun of her.
I thought you were condescending.
She thought I was condescending, but Josh, I find this really liberating. It's like Greenville's version of New Orleans. Like, you just go over to Davis.
It's Nola up at the Davis house.
Yeah, and to me, I didn't mean to be condescending at all. I thought
No.
this was really like, I was really envious, right? Because I don't feel like I can do whatever I want at my own
Right,
house.
right.
Right? And so...
I get that you're being honest now, and before I thought you were being condescending because I thought your sub point to that was like, you can do whatever you want at Dave's house, and that means it's a wreck over there all the time, and they're spending money they don't need to spend all the time, and it's loud.
None of those things are true.
Okay.
Literally none of those things. But if they
man.
were, you have fun in exchange.
Exactly. So it's just which one is more valuable to you. Josh, I want to let you sum us up here because we've only got a couple minutes left. And like I said, we're going to have to do 2 or 3 parts to this for sure because we didn't even get like halfway through your notes. But sum this up for us for today.
I think, what you won't hear from me today is say, give these prescribed methods of what to do because it depends on everybody's circumstance, the way that they cycle through,
Sure.
and the severity of their impairment. For some people, they're bedridden and they're stuck. For other people, they hold a job. For some, and there's ups and downs. For some people, it's very seasonal. For me, the winter months can be really difficult.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's just become a thing where my wife's just kind of said, hey, you know what? I'm just realizing this is every year for
Every
you.
year.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And by early January, I'm a new man. And by February, it's like it wasn't a thing.
Wow.
And so there's a lot in there that, tied back to my mom, of the loss of my mom, with my birthday, her birthday, holidays of Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Right.
There's a lot of circumstantial
man.
pieces
I
I've
didn't
come
think
to
about
realize.
that. Yeah.
And the holidays are just, they're stressful. 2, and we could do a whole podcast on that, holidays.
Yeah.
2, they're the busiest times of the year. And 3, if you're not with the people you consider your loved ones, you're going to feel lonely.
Absolutely.
And there's some people that cannot replace the place of a loved one, to your point,
Yeah.
Michael. I think, identifying a baseline of where you are is extremely important if you consider yourself feeling down or depressed. Where are you? Who are you? Where do you belong? Where does it hurt? If you can answer some of those questions, you're in a good point.
Yeah.
And what you need to go back a little bit is where it's counseling, not coaching. You need to go back a little bit to learn where did this, what was the onset of this? When did so you say 2008 and you make a correlation, Michael, to your friend group that was completely disbanded. And
No, they're all still there. I was removed.
Just Michael is
I
gone.
moved to Texas. They stayed in Pennsylvania.
how often do you get back to see them?
Twice a year.
Okay, that's pretty good. That's good. Are those better times when you're with them?
Oh, yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
great. Okay, good. I think the loop often needs changing when we talk about self-talk. That's not, that is what we're saying about ourselves. And a lot of most people are not conscious of what they're saying about themselves. And most people don't catch themselves in the moment they're talking about themselves. And the things they're saying can be replaying the loop. And so in that sense, we have a piece of what we can do about it. It's not the end-all, be-all, but it's a part of the process. And like you said, Michael, the external factors that are influencing the way we're thinking, feeling, and believing. And the most important thing I could say to somebody who's depressed, I've sat across from people who told me their plan of what they're going to do to kill themselves. And it's a really jarring moment. It's like time just stands still.
It's unbelievably brutal.
They tell me to the detail what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, and it's all hands on deck at that point. I mean, I don't give them, all right, we need to look at self-talk, and we're going to put on Fuller House.
No.
It's legit, man. It's, all right, who's the village, and how do we get them to surround
That's exactly
you? And how
right.
do we
You
keep
won't be by
safe
yourself.
today?
Yeah, exactly.
How do we save your life? And I think that fog you talked about, I just think there's a time, and societally, we're not good at this, but I think there's a time to carry people when they're, if somebody says, hey, I'm terminal and I have cancer and this is what's happening, they're not going to say, did you get your reports done? They're not going to say, make sure you keep things as normal as you can for the next 6 months.
Right.
It's time to pause. It's time to hit the button and to cease certain activity.
Yeah.
And depression sometimes begs the same, response. And people around you just need to realize maybe they don't get it, maybe they've not experienced it, but it's time for them to pay what it costs, do what you need to do to get them the help that they need. And we've never had the abundance of help we have today. The stigma is coming down tremendously.
I agree.
But there are so many factors like the screen time, fear of missing out, social networks. our identity and all of those things, this inability to unplug, the lack of families having time together at the dinner table, all of these things are decreasing our margin to reflect interpersonally. And so I just think the parts of the brain that need to process often are not. And by the time we are able to, we're so far into depression that it's like you said, it's like now I'm deep into this thing.
That's right.
But there was a process that took you down that path. And that's what I want to caution people is on the way to that darkened place, what are the things we can pay attention to? Self-talk being one of them.
That's awesome. I think that's a really good place to pause, and we will definitely be picking this back up. But thanks, Josh,
Yes,
for being here.
thank you again. Another home run for Josh.
Absolutely.
You guys rock. Hey, thanks for tackling some tough stuff.
Yeah.
And for being honest and vulnerable.
You're most welcome.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everyone who's listening, and please subscribe if you don't mind on our YouTube page, and you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter as well at @Splain_yourself to get all the latest news and updates. Until next time, keep your spirits up and always be ready to splain yourself.
This is Josh Neuer, licensed professional counselor. If you or someone you know is struggling with depression, please consider the following resources, including the Anxiety and Depression Association of America at adaa.org and To Write Love on Her Arms at twloha.com. If you feel someone is exhibiting warning signs of suicide, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or call 911. Your story is important and hope and help is available to you.